Are you growing old or are you consciously aging? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Ron Pevny. We're going to talk about conscious living, conscious aging, and it all starts right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California, Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and we're on UK Health Radio all weekend long. Guys TV, Guys Radio. Thanks for your support. Okay, Guys Radio is the video portion of our show when we bring our special guest of the week on. And today we're going to talk about aging and conscious aging. It's one of my favorite topics. As you all know, I write a column for UK Health Radio's Health Triangle magazine called Aging is a Choice. And it's a subject that's near and dear to my heart. We're all aging every day at this moment. And I've got an expert on here who wrote a book about aging before it became the hot topic. His name is Ron Pevny. The name of the book, I'm going to hold it up here for our viewing audience, is called Conscious Living, Conscious Aging, Claiming the Gifts of Elderhood. And this is a re-release of the book. It's the 10th anniversary edition. And Ron's been doing amazing work with aging and helping people age in a graceful, conscious way for the past 20 or so years. And he continues. And as you can see, for those who are watching, Ron's in great shape and he's aging consciously himself. So let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get started. So he's got over 45 years experience dedicating to assisting people in negotiating life transitions as they create lives of purpose and passion. He's the published author and founding director of the Center for Conscious Eldering, based in Colorado, which for 20 years has presented workshops and retreats across North America to support people in bringing purpose, growth, and commitment to service in their elder years. So the name of the book, once again, is Conscious Living, Conscious Aging. I'm delighted to welcome for the first time Ron Pevny to Guys Radio. Good day, Ron. How are you?
I'm well, Robert, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor to be able to talk with you today.
Well, my pleasure. You know, one of the things I always say and what I like to write about is really twofold, and I think it falls right into what your work is. And one is the narrative that we have, that our culture's given us about archetypes, about this is the time where you're the worker now, and you're the father now, and you're the uncle now, and you're the older worker now, and you're retired now, and then you're now not valuable anymore. Step aside. And I think that people don't realize that the retirement years or your aging years can be the best, freest, most fulfilling time of your life if you have the right mindset about it and you have the right tools and the right strategies and the right practices and protocols. So tell us, what do you think of that? And what was your initial inspiration for writing this book?
Well, Robert, I think that our society has somewhat clearly defined definitions for the various roles that we play in life at our different life stages. But we do not have any kind of a defined and honored role for people after retirement age. I don't think we know what to do with older people. And we do not present any kind of a positive, empowering vision for older people for what life can be like after retirement. Mostly when you hear about older adults, you hear about their strain on Medicare and Social Security, almost like aging is some kind of a liability and a detriment to our society. In contrast, throughout much of history until maybe 150, 200 years ago, for those who were fortunate enough to get old, there was a clearly defined, honored role. There were expectations of the ways that elders would be of service to their community. And we need that so badly in our world now. And so my work and that of others who share my beliefs is to help paint a picture for people of what is possible, what an honored role as they age can be. The reason I wrote my book is because I've been, for about 25 years, I've been offering workshops and retreats with a few select colleagues to help people explore the possibilities of their aging. And when you do a retreat, and we keep our group small so we could have deep sharing, you have maybe 15 people. If you write a book, you can reach a lot more people. And this day and age, if you have the privilege of being on podcasts, you can reach a whole lot more people. And so I feel that the message I have to share is important. And I write, I do these podcasts, and everything I do to try to change this disempowering vision of aging.
Fantastic answer. You talk about conscious aging. That's the name of the book, Conscious Living, Conscious Aging. What, for our audience, what do you mean by conscious when it comes to aging?
You know, for me, Robert, the term conscious can very much be equated to the word awareness. And I think that conscious aging, to me, involves increasing our awareness in several key areas. Maybe one of the main ones is increasing our awareness of what is truly our own voice, what is truly our own unique, authentic aspirations, our authentic vision for who we can be, as opposed to all the ideas that have been internalized from the world around us, from our parents, from everything like that. So what is most authentically me? And that's a really good place to start, I think, as we begin aging. Conscious aging is increased awareness of what our truest strengths are and our truest passions and gifts, and what are those areas that do not serve us well? We all have shadow elements in us. You know, we all have habits and ways of thinking that began when we were just little that do not serve us and will not serve us moving forward, no matter how noble our aspirations. So becoming aware of that. Conscious means becoming aware of when we are living out of habit, and we all live out of habit much of the time, and when we're actually being intentional and making choices that can best serve us and serve the world around us, rather than habitually responding to everything. And I think, lastly, I would say that conscious aging means becoming aware, or more and more aware, that we are more than just our personality and our ego running around doing whatever we do. There is some kind of a call it a spirit if you want. It doesn't matter to me what you call it, but there's some kind of a life force, some kind of a wisdom in each of us that is bigger than just the normal ego that we identify with. And the more we can become aware of that, the more we can become aware of how, as we age, we can best use our gifts, we can best thrive, we can best heal from all those things that, you know, we all need some healing. We've all suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. It's being aware of that spiritual dimension of ourselves that can really, really help us to thrive as we age. So that's what conscious means to me.
Okay. You mentioned, we talk about, it seems like it's kind of some opportunities there for people that I think a lot of either seniors, elderly, older, whatever you want to refer to yourself as. I don't refer to myself as any of that stuff. Is that there's opportunities for freeing yourself from a lot of the things you mentioned that we are habitual in many ways. But a lot of folks think that, oh, I'm older now, you know, maybe if you have a lot of money, you can kick back and do some of these things. But if you're under financial pressure, or if you're have some type of chronic disease, it becomes difficult to really be who you want to be. How do you address those concerns from certain people who are aging, who do have real issues when it comes to money and health?
Well, you know, aging ain't for sissies. we've oftentimes heard that. And in spite of what a lot of the anti-aging proponents would tell you, the fact of the matter is that no matter how well we try to take care of ourselves, at some point or other, we're going to suffer a breakdown of our bodies. You know, maybe we're going to suffer mental diminishments. That's a reality. And I think that conscious aging is so very much about um, developing an inner resilience that enables us to deal with these losses and to still find purpose and meaning, even if we're not able to do the kind of things we used to do or that we would really love to do. And that's one of the reasons I believe it's so important to get in touch with that, that spiritual essence in us, because as we lose our physical abilities, we can strengthen, we can grow more deeply these other dimensions of us. I believe that elderhood really can be the pinnacle of our emotional and our spiritual growth, the pinnacle of our really knowing who we are and how we can make a difference in the world in this special, special time in life. And the more we can do some of the work and gain some of the understandings that can help us to see that kind of a vision for our elderhood, the more we're going to be able to deal with the losses of health or financial, stresses or whatever that may indeed befall us.
And including the friends and family also, because you see, as you age, people fall by the wayside, and we have to just, keep on keeping on and keep going. So to me,
Yes.
there are three aspects when we're aging, if you want to age consciously, that you write about, and that is, the body, and you touched on some of these, the body, the mind, and the spirit. Well, the body, maybe you can't do, like, I'm a marathon runner. I have a friend who's my age, I'm 69. He still runs marathons. My body says, don't do it. So I listen. So one of the things is listening to your body, but I still work out all the time. But I've changed my workout from weights to more stretching, from running to more swimming. I'm blessed and fortunate I can do those things. So let's talk about the body a little bit. People, a lot of folks as they age, they have hip replacements or knee replacements or some type of thing that prevents them from doing a lot. To me, there's always a way though. There's always an option. Talk to us a little bit about body first.
Well, I think we are fortunate, Robert, in that we live in an age where we have awareness that previous generations, even my parents, had no idea of how a healthy, well-balanced lifestyle can help us to live really well. Our parents didn't have that. And so I think it's incumbent on us as we age, if we want to age well, to learn as much as we can and to do, like you say, to use our bodies well, but in sane ways, to eat well, to do all those kind of things well. But I think another aspect that is not spoken of that much when we talk about our physical well-being is the importance of purpose in physical and mental well-being. And there are many, many studies being done now that I think confirm what the world's wisdom traditions have talked about for forever. And that's that when we have a strong sense of purpose, that keeps our life force strong. It keeps our minds strong. Rebecca Levy, who's a researcher at Yale University, maybe you've spoken to her on your show, but her research showed that people who in midlife believe that they can have a positive elderhood rather than just seeing only bleakness and loss ahead, those people tend to have a lifespan that's on average 7.5 years longer, and they suffer from a lot less Alzheimer's and other things. And so the mind and body are so connected. It's not just working out more or eating well. It's also how we use our mind, how we funnel our energies into ways that'll keep us alive because they bring us alive.
Great insights there. My special guest on Guys Radio, we're talking about conscious aging, Ron Pevny, author of the book Conscious Living, Conscious Aging. So you got into the two other areas I wanted to get to, which was first the body, and then the mind, and then the spirit. One last thing on body. You mentioned, what we eat. To me, it's incredibly important as we age that we start to change our diet and eliminate certain things. I know a lot of guys my age, and they're basically doing things the same way they did when we started out in our corporate careers way back then when I was in New York City. And that means a lot of stress, eating a lot of questionable food, drinking too much, late nights, and it just takes its toll over time. For myself, I had a health scare about 10 years ago, and then I had another one about 3 years ago. And I worked in the beverage alcohol business and the marketing advertising side of it, but I never had an issue with it. But at a certain point, I said, that's it. I'm not drinking alcohol anymore. And I stopped. It'll be 4 years next month. And to me, that was a major help to my keeping myself healthy. And the
Yes.
other for me, I know everybody's into all these different diets. I don't eat meat. I don't have a problem with eating meat. I ate it most of my life, but I haven't eaten meat in 15 years. The point is, you don't have to do what I'm doing. And I also do intermittent fasting, but there's little things that I think we need to, it's like having ring savvy. If you're an older fighter or something, you have to know how to use the angles. And that might mean, it's the same thing as with don't run marathons, swim, don't eat red meat all the time. If it doesn't work for you, or if you're getting some type of chronic diseases based on your diet, you have to learn to adapt and not just say, hey, I've been doing this my whole life. I'm still here. I'm just going to keep doing it, because you're going to pay, in my opinion, unless you're lucky, and there's some lucky folks out there, you're going to pay a price unless you learn how to turn the dial on what you do physically, and that includes what you put inside. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm no authority on the role of diet in health, but I could tell you one story that brought this home to me in a big way. About 2 years ago, in a relatively routine surgery that I had to have for a heart valve, something went awry, and I just about died. And woke up 7 days later, and the doctors told me, my God, we didn't think you were going to make it. They said that when this has happened, on those rare instances it's happened before, everybody has died. And I really, really believe that the fact that I work hard my whole life, and I've continued to work hard as I've gotten in my 60s, 70s, I'm 76 now. I've gone out and I've worked out on those days when I didn't feel like it.
Exactly.
I've held myself to one beer when there's, two would feel so good. I think I made choices that ended up being reflected in my life being saved in that particular situation. And I'll never know for sure exactly why I survived, but the doctors feel, my family feels, I feel that the lifestyle choices I made played a huge role in that.
Mm-hmm.
The one other thing I would add to that, and maybe this is where mind fits into all this, Robert, what the doctors saw in me, what friends and my family saw in me, that oftentimes you don't see in somebody, is they saw that I had such a strong sense of purpose. And the doctors, we were having conversations about my work, and they were saying, you are so invested in this that's going to keep your energy flowing. That's going to help you to heal from your health crisis. And for me, that was a confirmation again that this strong sense of purpose plays a critical role in physical well-being as well as mental well-being.
Another great point. If I may ask you, when you were kind of out of it for 7 days, where did you go?
Well, I'll tell you what.
What was it, an NDE, a near-death experience?
No.
Or were you just out? Were you like in a...
When I learned everything that happened, and I was just barely coming out of, being unconscious, off the ventilator and everything, they told me what happened. And my family says that the first thing that came out of my still foggy mouth and brain was, you mean I was dead for a couple minutes and I didn't have a near-death experience? Damn, why not? I really, really, I've studied about those things. Obviously, you know about them too. I wish I would have. I didn't. And that's okay. That's okay.
Well, you're here. That's the main thing.
I am here. That's right.
let's get to the mind, because that's another area for conscious living. You say the sense of purpose, which to me is like mind and spirit. But let's talk about the mind a little bit. As we age, you know, a lot of times we work, we come home, we turn on the TV. Maybe you watch a game, maybe you watch some type of show or Dancing with the Stars, whatever it is. To me, it's incredibly important to read and to nourish yourself and challenge yourself to learn new things just to stay on point. And it's very easy to slide into just the habitual way. I did this yesterday, I do it today, and those routines go on and on. But eventually, you kind of, in my opinion, that leads to kind of falling off at a certain point. Whereas if you're constantly, you know, my thing is, I don't know about you, Ron, is like, I'm like, do I have enough time to do all the stuff I want to do? I have a to-do list. I keep it on my desk every day. I look at it. I check it off. I did this, I did that. I could very easily say, I'm not doing anything, but I do this show. I do all the prep work for it. To me, it's really important that mentally there's the stimulation there. How do I learn about aging? How do I come up with questions for Ron? How do I do this? How do I do that? And just always learning things and being connected mentally. Thoughts on that, Ron?
Yeah, well, you spoke that really well, Robert. And I think the another dimension that I would add to that is that I believe that as we're aging and when we get toward retirement age and thereafter, I believe that what we feed ourselves in every way is more important than ever. And I think we're all aware that, or at least many of us are aware that we need to feed ourselves healthy food and not a bunch of toxic junk.
Right.
But the same thing applies to what we feed our minds. And look at how many people and how perhaps even you and I have the temptation to feed our minds just a steady diet of crassness or of fear-inducing images. Look how addictive it is watching the news on television, and how addictive it is watching negative, fear-inducing stuff. And so I'm not saying that we bury our head in the sand and we're not aware of the world around us, but I'm saying that we stay aware, but we feed ourselves plenty of inspiring images, good poetry, good books, good stories, good films, good friends who bring us alive rather than having a bunch of friends who are just a drag on our energy. The more we feed our minds a healthy diet, the healthier our minds are going to be, and then the healthier our body's going to be because they're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're going to have a positive vision for our future rather than a vision that's totally tainted by images of fear, either about the world around us or fear, about our own lives and our own situations.
Exactly. Ron Pevny, my guest on Guys Radio, conscious living, conscious aging, favorite subject of mine. Ron's an expert, learning a lot here. Self-talk, and then we can move on to spirit because I want to get there because I think that's incredibly important. But self-talk, I think, is critical in terms of our minds when we're aging, because we're told by society, you're this, you're that. I know from all my friends who turned 70, every one of them had like, I'm 70, and it was like, click, they turned into a different person. And even when you celebrate that, it was like, I'm this long, and send somebody a happy video for 70 and all of that. I don't know if that the type of self-talk we want, because it's placing you in a preconceived, compartmentalized box where you've been defined now because you're that number. And if you look at people and you talk to people, there's people who are 70 have more energy than people who are 30. And so if you want to just go by chronological numbers, you're doing yourself, in my opinion, Ron, you're doing yourself a disservice. Talk to us about the importance of positive self-talk in conscious living and conscious aging.
Well, I think positive self-talk is critical, but it can be incredibly challenging, or it can seem very superficial and artificial unless that self-talk is grounded in a vision for what our elderhood can be that's different from the vision that we're surrounded by. And that's why I think it's so important, the work that I do, and I'm not alone. There are many, many others, I'm sure you know, are doing good work to try to help create a positive vision for aging in the world. That's why our work is so important, because if you have a larger vision of the possibilities, and if you're aware of models, it's so important to be looking around and seeing models of people who are aging and who really, really seem to be thriving in every way, have a light that really shines. When we have that kind of a vision, then the kind of self-talk we do feels very real, because it's grounded in a strong vision that we're carrying with us. And so that's why I think positive self-talk has to be grounded in something bigger than just, well, I'm going to say a couple affirmations every day or something like that.
Well, let's talk about the next part of the puzzle there, which is spirit, and the importance of having some type of connection with the universe, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. And some people don't believe. That's okay also. They know that there's more than just themselves, so there must be a connection to something. But talk to us about the importance of having some type of vision, connection to something beyond ourselves and our physical 3D bodies.
Well, I think in our elder years, our elder chapters, that is more important than at any point in our life. And for a variety of reasons. I think one reason is that when we are younger, it's real easy for our energy to be directed toward our careers and toward our work, toward family, toward all those kind of things that are really important. But when we get to the point where perhaps we retire, or we certainly began to recognize, even if we're not fully retired, we recognize that we recognize our aging. At that particular point, when we don't have all the roles that we used to have, and all the responsibilities, and all the ways of identifying ourselves, I am this, I am that in life. If we don't have that, there can be an incredible hole in our lives that can lead to depression. It can lead to angst. It can lead to negativity. Can lead to not giving a darn about taking care of ourselves, because why do it? What's the reason? And that's where our spirituality can be so important, because when we recognize that there is something in here that is bigger than the roles we have played and the goals that have been so important to us prior to now, when we get in touch with that, that is a source of confidence, a source of strength. And it's not just an idea about spirit. If we really do some of what I see as inner work, it is really a living sense of that spirit being in us, alive in us.
Embodiment, right?
An embodiment. And you've seen people, I've seen people who are in their 70s and 80s, some of whom, are in terrible shape physically. But when you're with them, there's a certain light. I mean, you just love to be with them. There's not a bunch of negativity. There's a joy, there's a love, there's a compassion. You want to be with them. And that's the spirit that they have worked to embody and to make part of their lives. And that's so important, I think, because if we, as I said earlier, the pinnacle of our growth can be our elderhood. And our growth isn't just our psychological growth. Our growth is also our spiritual growth, however we understand that. And the last thing I would say is that as we approach the end of our life, as we become more and more aware of our mortality, nothing can help to ease the fear and give us a sense of confidence moving forward than knowing that somehow we are bigger than just this body that we're going to lose and this personality we're going to lose. And we don't know what's going to happen afterwards. I don't pretend I can tell you what's going to happen after I leave this body. But all the world's wisdom traditions have said that this spirit lives on. in some way. And the more that we are able to experience and to bring that spirit forth in us while we're still alive, all the world's wisdom traditions say the easier it's going to be to move into whatever is next after this life.
Well said. Well said. The word came up in your book a few times, forgiveness, and the importance of forgiveness as we age. Because listen, we all have a lot of baggage and we carry a lot of stuff around, and we've all been victimized and violated and gotten the short end of the stick. And everybody in some form or fashion has had some challenges and tough things to go through. And it's easy to be angry and bitter. And, everybody, myself included, we have to deal with that stuff.
Yes.
Talk to us about the importance of forgiveness as part of conscious aging and conscious living.
Well, as we age, we have less energy, inevitably, than we had when we were younger. And so we want our energy to be there as fully as it possibly can be there, so that what we aspire to in our elder years can become a reality. So we have good energy to put into that. There may be nothing that is a drag on our energy, that saps our energy more than all this unforgiven stuff that so many of us carry. It's toxic. It's just like a millstone around our neck or something like that. And if a lot of our energy is going into that, it's not going to be available to fuel a really positive, fulfilled elderhood. So that's one of the main reasons that forgiveness is so important. I think another reason it's so important, Robert, is that I think a great many of us, and I'm sure a great many of your listeners, want to be able to live with a more open heart. We want to be more loving. We want to be more compassionate. That's how we want to see the world. And resentments and lack of forgiveness, whether of others or of ourselves, shuts down our hearts. And I could tell you from my own experience that there was a couple years when there was somebody that I resented so much that it was terrible. But at the same time, I've been committed to trying to grow, to live with a more and more open heart. And I began to realize that every time I got into one of my own personal tirades against this person that I so resented, I began to just feel my heart shutting down, and it did not feel good. I felt lousy. And I finally realized, whether what this other person did or whether it's something that was a real violation of me or not, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to keep myself in this prison of a closed heart because of what happened back then.
That's a great point. Now, as part of that, the forgiving oneself, talk to us about the importance of that, because a lot of times we manage to, cut off the toxic energy of dealing with other people, but sometimes we're tougher on ourselves than we need to be, because people, I think, in my personal opinion, don't realize that they are loved no matter what they do. And because of that, they don't love themselves. And that becomes a real issue, and they don't forgive themselves, because we all make stupid mistakes throughout life.
Mm-hmm. And that's the hardest, forgiveness. And I think in our retreats, we have a whole segment. We spend a lot of time dealing with this critical topic of forgiveness. And most people will say that, there's a few others where I still have some forgiveness work to do. But most of them will say is I just haven't been able to forgive myself. And that just taints your sense of self-love, your self-regard. And I'm not going to try in a couple minutes to tell you how to forgive yourself. I mean, that's the topic of whole books. That's the topic of a lot of inner work. But I think I would say that one really important thing, and I think that is a key part of what I call the inner work of conscious eldering or conscious aging, is doing a lot of that life review and reflection where we come to see, or we at least make an attempt to see everything that's happened in our life as part of a journey of growth. And that includes the times we've been wounded by others, that we may be carrying that around with us, with all our resentments. But if we could see that, somehow that had the potential to help us grow, we learned something from that. Maybe we became stronger because of that. Maybe we developed some compassion for others who are wounded because of that. And when we take a look at our own flaws and the ways that we have screwed up, and we take a look at that and we say, at least now I have a chance to look at that instead of holding on to it with grudge against myself, to see what could I learn from that? And what could I learn about how I do not want to live in the future? Were there some lessons for me there that somehow served my larger journey of growth? And I think when we adapt that mindset to look at all our experiences that way, then it's a lot easier to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, and to see our whole life in a whole different way than if we just see it as a bunch of random occurrences, which included woundings and screw ups and blah, blah, blah.
Great. Let's talk a little bit. I want to give time to this book, Conscious Living, Conscious Aging, and the 10-year anniversary of it with the new edition. So 2 questions for you. One is, why now? And what's happened over those 10 years in terms of what you've learned about aging from doing your workshops, et cetera. And then how do people work with this book?
Well, I think the main reason I wrote the book is that, the main reason I wrote the 5 new chapters and several other changes that enhanced the first edition was twofold. One, I have learned more. I hope I'm a little wiser than I was 10 years ago. But I think the main focus of the new chapters was that I am seeing that those of us who are aging and who are committed to perhaps becoming conscious elders are doing that in an environment where the whole world around us is in a state of crisis that is more severe than it was 10 years ago. And I see where we can't just think of our own aging as if we're living in some kind of a bubble and we move through all the stuff we move through and do some inner work and whatever. But rather, we are aging in a world that is in peril, in a society and in a culture that is in peril. And the gifts of conscious elders, of people who make the choice to have their elderhood be a time when they are finding ways to give their gifts as they age, those gifts are more important perhaps than ever. To have, generations of tens of millions of people believing that somehow when I retire giving my gifts. And now it's just a time to look out for my own pleasure and play and security as best I can. That is a huge loss to these individuals, but it's a huge loss to the world. I truly believe the world needs the gifts of conscious elders.
Fantastic. So where can people find out about what you're doing, the work you're doing, and your workshops, et cetera?
Mm-hmm. We've got a website that has a lot of articles, a lot of resources, a lot of poetry, a lot of interviews. People tell us they find it a really meaningful website, and it lists our programs. And we don't offer a lot of retreats. We offer 3 or 4 longer week-long retreats a year, maybe a couple shorter ones. We don't offer a whole lot. It's just me and 2 or 3 trusted colleagues. But the website is Center for Conscious Eldering.com. I know that's a lot. Center for Conscious Eldering.com. A lot of information there. My book is available at any place that you can normally get a hold of books. If you want my book and you would like to best support our work, the way that can best support us is to buy it directly from my publisher, Beyond Words. And that way, a much larger chunk of the cover price goes to support our work than if you buy it from Amazon or something like that. And so you go to Beyond Words Publishing, and you can find information about my book there. But it's available through any other purveyor of books.
Okay, last question for you. Kind of from everything you've learned, whether it's been the last 10 years or just leading up to your engagement with the whole aging process, what are your 3 best tips for all of us who are aging out there, mostly for folks like over 50? What are the 3 things to really do?
Oh my goodness, how do you condense it all down to 3? I think one of the most important things to do is to do a little bit of honest self-reflection.
Okay.
On what is the story about aging that I am carrying with me as I get into my 50s and 60s? Do I have a story of about aging that's primarily a story of diminishment and loss? Or do I at least have some strong elements of rich possibilities in aging?
Okay.
So I think that's really an important thing to do.
Number 2.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Number 2.
Okay, number 2, you can tell where you're at, I think, in terms of how aligned your life and your aspirations are with a conscious elderhood, with positive conscious aging, by asking yourself this question. Is my main reason for getting up in the morning so that I can just fill the hours, or so that I can get as much play and enjoyment as possible, or that I could find as much security as possible, on the one hand? Or do I have a strong need in me that when I wake up in the morning, I'm looking forward to a new day because I have an opportunity to somehow be of service and to somehow be growing in this day?
Fantastic.
Okay. A third one, as I said earlier, look for models. Look for people that somehow that are well into their elderhood that really inspire you. And ask yourself, what is it about them that's inspirational to me? And is there any way in my own life that I could use them as a model and maybe let them bring out in my own unique way some of what can help me to shine in my elder years too?
Fantastic. Ron Pevny, the name of the book, Conscious Living, Conscious Aging. Thank you so much for being on Guys Radio. I want to continue our dialogue, if you will, on aging to help people and support your work. So hopefully we can do it again. Until then, I thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, Ron.
Well, thank you, Robert. I really enjoyed this interview, and I do hope to talk with you again sometime.
Fantastic.
If you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week to Guys TV and Guys Radio, please support us by subscribing to our channels and platforms. Thank you.